Um, I just want to say how very sorry I am for...
She should be locked up until she tells us what happened.
Alright, so weapons. Quite the eerie story. I don't know how this got recommended to me so quickly, so rapidly, by so many different people. It really was magic. Like how I just heard this person talk about it, then I heard this person talk about it, and I heard this person talk about it. I'm like, alright, I gotta go see this. So I immediately bought my ticket, went down to go see it. And it really left me like questioning whether I should even talk about this movie. But I'm going to decode this one. So the basic plot of it is that we get this sudden disappearance of these children. They disappear. The town is just in an uproar of like, where did all the children go? And they're like spinning out. And the story starts at a certain point with the teacher of the class. So essentially the teacher and the student are the only thing within this class that are still intact. So there's some connection. The connection is that all the students just in this class disappear. And we have the student and the teacher are the only two who remain. So obviously they're the main suspects, like what's going on, what happened, but nobody can understand what happens. So the way the story is told is broken down in a way that it keeps you within suspense. Start with the teacher, you see her life and how that's playing out. Then the next person you get to meet is one of the parents. And then once you go through their story, then after that you get a police officer that's connected to the teacher. And after you see the police officer, you see a criminal, a heroin addict that the police officer is entangled with. And after you get the police officer, then you go back to the principal, who's in charge of the school. And finally we wrap up with the child. So we have 6 people over the course of the story who are all connected and enmeshed in this drama. So essentially we have it that the aunt of the student comes in out of nowhere, supplants herself into the home and says, okay, I need help, I'm sick, I need your help, put me up. And the parents are like, oh, okay, we'll put you up. The boy is like questioning, like, why? But the parents persist. It's like, no, we're just gonna do what we need to do. And the parents become essentially despondent. They don't know, like, well, they don't respond to the boys just immediately, like, what is going on with y'all? And mom and dad are just like, hi, hey there. And the auntie is like, don't worry about it, they're fine, don't worry about it. And the boy's like, no. So auntie does some magic and she gets to somehow figure out a way to make it so the parents are stabbing themselves in the face. Parents are stabbing themselves in the face. The boy's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Oh my gosh. She drops the magic spell. The parents stop. The boy's like, oh, okay, I know who I'm fucking with now, so I'm not gonna mess with this lady. So the lady is just like, alright, well look, this is what I need you to do. I need more power. I want you to go and collect things from your classmates. So she gets the boy to do her bidding. He collects like some name tags, brings them back to her. She's like, okay, now we got some juice. She pulls in all the kids from the class and she's able to hide it from all of the officers. It just shows like the level of treachery you can get away with if you just know how the system works, right? So she gets all the kids locked up in the basement. She's able to avoid detection from the police. The detectives can't see anything, so they're like, alright, it is what it is. So they're just like stuck, not knowing like what happened to all these children. And literally the only people left are the boy and the teacher. So they like harass the teacher, like, well, you must know something. This boy couldn't have done this. And the teacher's like, I don't know what's going on. So they're like, look, well, we're gonna have to put you aside. What you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to sit this one out. We're gonna put you on ice for a little while, okay? Teacher's just like, oh no, I need to work. So her mind is going. So she's just like, all right, well, I'm gonna figure out what's going on. So she's going around knocking on people's doors, trying to chase down the boy. The boy's like, leave me alone, lady, you're crazy. She's like, I don't know what to do. So she's drinking herself into oblivion. She's like waiting outside the house. And then the night that she waits outside the house, she falls asleep. One of the parents comes out, clips her hair, snips her hair, and that's how she's able, the witch, so Auntie Gladys, she's able to get the principal wrapped up in her magic. So she goes to visit the principal. She takes one of his items. Goes over to his house. He invites her in. He actually lets her in. And that's the thing. So now that he's in the house, or now that Auntie Gladys is in the house, principal's like, look, like, what is going on? She's like, you didn't tell the police, did you? He's like, no. So then she snaps the twig with his item on it, uses her magic, and then he goes off to go kill the teacher, Justine. So he goes off to kill Justine, and she's saved by one of the parents after he's like doing some detective work to kind of figure out like what's going on. So he's pressed up on her like, you know something, tell me something. And meanwhile, Principal Marcus Miller, he comes storming out and tries to kill her. So naturally his protective instincts, Archer's protective instincts kind of protects this teacher, Justine. And at that point, he's like, well, there's definitely something else going on. That guy is like insanely trying to kill her. So then they go together to the house that they suspect has like this boy and all the secrets. So they drive up and they're posted outside the house. And this is why the story is like all over the place. So the police officer who was involved with Justine, some entanglement there with some relationship they had, gets drunk one night with her after being sober. The next day he's all discombobulated. He runs into this heroin addict, and because he's so discombobulated, he ends up like harassing this heroin addict. And now he's like, oh shit, I probably went a little too hard on him. Let me let him go. And he tells him like, get out of here, don't ever come back. So then the addict is like, alright, whatever. Addict goes, he's searching around town for something he can sell for drugs. And somehow, some way, he comes across as the child Alex's house, and he breaks in, he steals some stuff. But then he discovers like all of these children are missing. Or he discovers the children in the basement. Doesn't think anything of it until he tries to pawn off the stuff he stole from the house. And he sees like this missing poster with a $50,000 reward. So he's like, oh, well, let me go back to the police and report this and get my money. He sees the police officer again. Police officer is just like about to kill him. He's like, wait, I know where the children are. I can tell you. He's like, all right, show me. So they drive over to Alex's house. And they go up there. And that's when a police officer gets stuck. And then obviously the next night, Justine and Archer show up, and they're just like, why is this police car here? And then Paul comes out, the police officer Paul comes out, he's just like, come on in. He lures him in. And when he lures him in, he and the drug addict attack both Justine and Archer, and they fight for their lives. Auntie Gladys is like, we gotta get out of here. So she uses the magic to get Archer to kind of kill Justine, but just in time, Alex gets his parents. No, Alex uses the magic to free the kids and attack the Auntie Gladys. So once the kids are like under Alex's control, they chase down Auntie, and the movie ends by them killing the Auntie. So the plot is pretty bare bones. It's really like the way that it's told, that it keeps you in suspense because you don't know what's going on for a good portion of the movie. You're just like watching this teacher, like the teacher is like a good 30 minutes of her story, and then it starts to speed up and you get faster and faster towards the end. Like once you get all the way to the end, it's moving at a decent speed. So that's why it's actually done pretty well, because it actually slowly starts and then it starts to unveil more and more information. As more and more information is unveiled, you get this creepy feeling. But I found that what was kind of interesting is because I didn't realize it was supposed to be funny, because the audience I was watching it with, like, they picked up on like some of like the humorous absurdness of it. I didn't actually find it particularly funny. It's like very dry humor in a sense. But then I looked up like who actually directed this, wrote and directed this was one of the people from the show The Whitest Kid You Know. And they had some funny sketches back in the day, but one of my favorites was Human Giant. Like, I always liked that sketch comedy show at that time. But The Whitest Kid You Know writer, it was like, it wasn't particularly funny, like overt. Like, it was the one thing, like if you compare it to like Get Out, no, it was very articulately done. Like Get Out could play on like that humor because you understand certain tropes of a horror movie, and you have that element of being black, being melanated. So you get like that audience who watches horror movies. We're talking specifically to them, so it adds a level of humor in a way that a lot of movies really can't. Like, it almost seems like it's easy to do horror comedy, but it actually is kind of hard, because you have to know what your audience is thinking, and you're able to speak to them in a way that you're leading them down this path, and then you unravel like the expectation, and that's what releases the tension, and that's what makes it almost funny. So I feel like when he did The Barbarian from like 2022, it actually was a bit more humorous. Like, it was a bit more suspenseful, just because it was almost just like absurd. Like, really? Like, oh my gosh, like the killer is obviously this guy, and then when you see like, oh, it's not, then you're like, what? So you're like, all right, now I understand, like this is a level of like comedy here, like we're playing with you, we're having fun here. And that's where it becomes almost just like, it's not funny, like haha, like that's the thing about comedy, is it's not like a joke, like knock knock, who's there? Like, there's a certain formula to humor, and it's not always the same formula that you're going to use in a horror movie that you would use in like a pure comedy. But you can take certain elements and you can place them into the horror movie, and then it becomes like a horror comedy, a dark comedy, whatever you want to call it. So it takes a bit of skill, but looking at it on that level, like just as the technical level of a movie, I say it's okay. It's decent. Like comparing it back to like Sinners. Like Sinners has that ambition where it wants to be a horror movie. It wants to be an action movie. Also wants to be a little bit comedic. Like it's running with like that Marvel idea where you can just jam pack so much into a movie, and it makes it like a spectacle in a sense. So for me, I didn't feel like Sinners necessarily handled that perfectly. I can understand like, all right, this is what you're doing. It worked for a lot of people, so I can't be so ignorant. But this movie, I felt like it was enough of a genre blend without doing too much. So at that point, like most people can just walk away and they can say, all right, simple movie, had some laughs, it was a bit absurd, but there's a deeper level of magic that's going on underneath this movie, right? So throughout the movie they were peppering in parasite. Like one of the dream sequences was the teacher was teaching one class, and on the whiteboard it said parasites. It was talking about the different parasites like in the background. And then in another sequence, right before Marcus the principal gets caught up, he was watching a documentary, and in the documentary it was talking about the cordyceps and how the cordyceps can program in and control and make zombies out of the ants. So again, that talks about the parasites. And then I think the last time they mentioned parasites is one of the times where the auntie had sent Alex on a mission to go get some items for the children. The teacher was actually talking about parasites. That was the actual lesson the teacher was giving on that day where he collected everything. So on that level, it was talking about parasites, like how parasites are able to utilize the host and get them to do their bidding. So if you understand anything about like the cordyceps and how it can control the ants and make them do its bidding, and it can fight other ants, and it's like a whole thing when you look into it. And that's on a level what you could say what was happening with the auntie, because something I was questioning was, how did the auntie understand? Like, this is an old ass woman, so how did this auntie, how is she like the sister of Alex's mom? And something was really strange or a bit off was, you never actually see the mom in her right mind interact with the aunt. Like, oh, hey, hi, Auntie Gladys. Like, you can understand, like, all right, this is my mother's sister. But the way Auntie Gladys had explained it to the principal, she was like, oh, that's my baby sister. So she had said, like, no, that's actually my sister. This is not like her great aunt. So it makes me wonder, like, was this lady even related to Alex's mom at all? I don't know. It's funny because it's introduced through the father. Like, the father says, like, oh, yeah, your aunt's coming over, which is strange. Like, we don't really see, like, Alex interact with his mom, really. We see, like, the main interaction is with his dad. His dad picks him up from school. We kind of see him like talk with his mom, but we don't see like his relationship necessarily with his mom. So again, Auntie Gladys, she could be considered like this parasite. Like, she could actually not even be related. She could have just found some way where she connected to, you know, one of the other family members and said, well, hey, can you take her? But the way that it is, it's presented, it's kind of like one of those things you just roll with it. You just go with it. Like, maybe she found some way to mind control and give that instruction to say, like, hey, let me live with that family. But if you really pay attention to a lot of the clues, like, she actually was like sickly when she came in. When Alex first saw her, Auntie Gladys had no hair, but after she got the parents, she had a couple of braids in her hair. And by the time she had all the children, she actually had like a decent amount of her hair. Like right before the children pulled her apart, she had a decent amount of her hair. She was able to like walk around and stuff like that. So she was eating off of all of those children's energy. So in a way, it was like a parasitic thing. But the way it's presented, it's like magic. Because she takes her blood, she wraps it around like the hair. Once she gets your hair, then that's how it's like a tracking device. So when you snap the twig around the hair, then whoever's under that control will go and kill whoever's hair is on there. So once she gets an item of yours, she has you under her control, and then she can just snap the twig and you go out and you just go on this command. You go under this control of her. So on that level, you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, it's magic maybe. And I guess that's the point of the movie. Like, you go in as like a blank slate and you can say, oh no, this movie was about COVID, because it talked about like the children being in the house and staying in the house and covering up their windows and being homebodies. You talk about a sickness. Like, I think that's one of the things she had said to the principal when he was like, I thought that was like a disease that you got on Oregon Trail. I forget the word he used. Like congestion or something like that. Consumption, that was the word he used. Ati said they're dealing with consumption. Nothing crazy, she said. And it was framed in a way where you could look at it like, all right, well, what sickness do they have? But it really was just mind control. So you could look at it like, all right, it's COVID. Like, COVID was a sickness that had all these children stuck in the house and it became like weapons. But this was something that was intentionally done through I guess you could look at it like unconventional ways, like using a twig and the hair and the blood. Like, for me, that doesn't code correctly as like, oh, this is a sickness. Like, if she was to, sneeze or touch or breathe, like, there really wasn't a lot of coding of like, oh, this is something I'm spreading to you like a disease. It seemed like she was using a series of steps in order to get you under a control. So that seems more to me like hoodoo magic than anything. So you can say like, oh, I mean, that's the beauty of it. Like, you can really work this in a way to say like, all right, well, that's what they did in the lab, and they did some type of magic to get everybody under this control. And yeah, but purely if you just look at it, it was about mind control, right? So to kind of put, a bookend on it, I think the movie was a code to say like, the old witch is dead, right? And she was killed off by the children. The children were under the control, technically in that moment, by another child, so a young wizard. Because the way the movie ends, it's like, all right, Alex, he couldn't live with his parents. Obviously, they didn't have enough capacity in their mind to be able to take over the child. So they were obviously institutionalized. So he went to go stay with another aunt. But you would imagine, like, once you see something like that, like, I have the power to do this. Really? I can do that? He saw all of the spells. Auntie showed him like, oh, this is what you do. This is how you get it. So in a way, it's supplanting like, all right, this is the new wizard. This is the new magician. The new practitioner. So he's going to grow up with that in his mindset. And what was also crazy when I thought about it was there's nobody who actually knew that this was magic. It was just a thing where the two, let's say out of the 6 people who were in this, right? Marcus was killed, Paul was killed, James was killed. So they all were wiped out. So the only people left were Alex, Archer, and Justine. Alex was the only one who saw what Auntie Gladys was doing, right? When Archer and Justine got in the house, they saw like, you know, the salt, and they saw like these people were literally out of their mind, wigged out. But they don't know like, oh, this was handled by a series of like magical incantations instead of voodoo practices. It wasn't shown to them, so they could just walk away like, that was weird, I don't literally know what happened, like I was under control. Archer's probably just gonna be like, look, like, I'm just glad I got my boy back, you know, I'm just happy I got Matthew back. And you know, they said it at the end as well, like some of the kids were starting to speak. So in a way, it's like some of the kids were waking up from this spell. Small little note, actually, they said that this movie technically took place in 2025, because if you look at the principal, when Gladys was in the office, you saw a ribbon that he had got in 2025. So in a way, it's showing like, all right, this is post like the COVID period. I don't think the kids were gone that long. So this is all something that you would assume happened recently, right? So all the kids are starting to wake up now, and they're starting to speak. They're starting to be aware. But yeah, in a sense, there's so many ways you can look at it. Like a lot of people, I'm sure, are gonna feel like, oh no, this is indicative of COVID. And it may have been something that they had done in that time, that 2020 to 2025 period. There may have been some sort of ritual done on the masses, but you can't really say, because COVID for most people was just like disease and stuff like that. This was way like more metaphorical. And I think the main message of this movie was the witch is dead, the old witch is dead. And the kids are under a new wizard. And that new wizard is able to program the children as weapons to go off and kill the old witch. So they don't know. I don't know how the magic works. I guess you understand based on the one thing, like once Gladys died, then the parents snapped out of it, in a way, snapped out of the mind control. I guess however deep you go into it, you're going to be lost in the sauce. But the parents were put under her control, but they didn't immediately wake up like Archer did. Like Archer kind of woke up and was like, oh wait, where's my son? Because he was only under the mind control for a few minutes, really. So he was able to wake up and get out of it. But he was released when Gladys died. So technically you could say like the kids were still under Alex's control, because he wouldn't know how to break the spell. Because realistically, the only thing we see in the movie as a way to break the spell is through death. So in a way, they're saying like Alex is still under control of the kids. So the kids are in control of the kids are in control of the kids. And the old witch who had all of the parents, she's out, right? So for me, I feel like that movie was a coded message. I'm really not even watching movies anymore to look at like, oh my gosh, well, I'm just going to get entertained. I'm going to get informed, because that movie definitely did show me like, oh, okay, they're showing all of these things in these movies, and they have messages beneath messages beneath messages. So, you know, for the average moviegoer, they're probably going to go and look at it and say like, oh, okay, cool horror movie. Maybe the more adept person is going to say, oh, it was a coded message for COVID. But I think even the high level, like decoders are gonna have to understand, like, that was a message to show you, like, the blonde witch, she's out. The old practitioner of magic, she was pulled apart. There's a new sorcerer in control. So you need to be on the lookout of this new sorcerer. So, yeah. One of the I guess bonus things you can look into if you're really into this stuff is the bacteriophage. Actually, let me put a pause on that. I'm not even going to talk about that. Let's keep that on ice, because I think that's something that's too advanced for YouTube. Let's keep that going. All right, so yeah, another movie decoded. I'm just going to continue to decode movies for the rest of the year. I guess that's what this channel is going to be about. I'm not going to make it like pop culture shit, talking about like anything other than like decoding movies. So we got a bunch of movies coming out in August, September, November. So if you like this, check out that subscribe button, because yeah, that's what I guess I'm officializing this channel is to be, is a decoder channel for movies. So get with it or get lost. Peace.